Welcome to the Cross Creek On Demand podcast, a podcast for you because God is for you. In today's episode, we're looking at the unseen battle that shapes our world, a struggle far greater than what meets the eye. Many feel that Christianity is under attack, and that feeling often stirs a desire to fight back, to defend what seems to be slipping away. But does that instinct lead us toward real victory, or does it keep us trapped in the same destructive patterns? The dragon, the beasts, the lamb. These powerful images from Revelation pull back the curtain on what's really happening in our world. Will we follow the way of the dragon, relying on power and force to win? Or will we follow the way of the Lamb, who conquers through love, sacrifice, and faithfulness? As we unpack these truths, let's ask ourselves, where are we placing our trust? Are we chasing the world's definition of power, or walking in the way of Jesus? This episode might challenge everything you thought you knew about victory. So, let's talk about it together. I want to read you some Jesus words really quick as we kind of intro today. So here is Jesus, the Sermon on the Mount. God blesses those who are poor and realize their need for him, for the kingdom of heaven is theirs. God blesses those who mourn, for they will be comforted. God blesses those who are humble, for they will inherit the whole earth. God blesses those who hunger and thirst for justice, for they will be satisfied. God blesses those who are merciful, for they will be shown mercy. God blesses those whose hearts are pure, for they will see God. God blesses those who work for peace, for they will be called the children of God. God blesses those who are persecuted for doing right, for the kingdom of heaven is theirs. Then later on, he adds to his sermon, and he says, "You have heard the law that says the punishment must match the injury, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I say, do not resist an evil person. If someone slaps you on the right cheek, offer the other cheek also. If you are sued in court and your shirt is taken from you, give your coat too. If a soldier demands that you carry his gear for a mile, carry it 2 miles. Give to those who ask, and don't turn away from those who want to borrow. You have heard the law that says, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I say, love your enemies. Pray for those who persecute you. In that way, you will be acting as true children of your Father in heaven. For he gives his sunlight to both the evil and the good, and he sends rain on the just and the unjust." And that is the core of the Jesus way of living. That's like a summary of how he says his followers should be. So you can imagine my shock when I flipped up X, this week, and this is a very popular post I saw. Christians who say love and pray for your enemies are the reasons Christians are losing. What? And it had 26 likes at the time. It was seen by 151,000. I blurred out the name, so you guys don't go hate on that person. But that's not just, I've seen many of those things in the past few years. Of like, Christians need to stand up and fight. It's loving your enemies. That doesn't work in the real world. That might be nice, but it doesn't actually work. See, here's the thing. And if you're taking notes, you can take notes. Many people fear that Christianity is under attack, and fear makes us fight back. I didn't realize that rhymed when I wrote it. But many people fear that Christianity is under attack, and because of that, there's fear. And that fear makes us want to fight back. It makes us want to take control. It makes us want to protect what's ours. But if we look at history, if we look at how things are going right now, does that actually fix anything? Does fighting back ever actually fix anything? Or does it just add to the cycle of suffering and hate that we see century after century? And so we're going through the book of Revelation because there's another way. There's a way that might look weak at first on the surface, but ultimately it overcomes evil at its root. And whether you're sitting here as you call yourself a committed Jesus follower, whether you're listening online, call yourself a Jesus follower or not, the truth is, we all know this, we want to live in a world without all this violence, without all this hatred. We want to live in a country where we can discuss things and disagree, but still appreciate each other and respect each other. And surprisingly, all this, as I said, is actually in the book of Revelation, that scary book that everybody's like, oh my gosh, what is this thing even about? What was this guy smoking when he wrote this? See, the book of Revelation was actually written to show actual persecuted Christians that the real battle isn't what they thought it was. And so this book that we're going to be going through for 4 more weeks It pulls back the curtain to show us what's really going on in our world. It flips our ideas of power and authority on their heads, and it shows us the way to the life and the world that we are all, Christians or not, we are all looking and hoping for. But, as maybe you've been told, Revelation, technically, it's not a timeline of how things are going to pan out. It's actually a symbolic vision that revealed hidden spiritual realities to its first readers. See, the book itself, it's a vision about a deeper cosmic war between God's kingdom and the forces of darkness. And it answers questions of why are we convinced that power is the only way to win? Why do we think that if we don't fight fire with fire, we'll somehow lose? Why do we think that domination is the only path to victory, even though deep down we know it only keeps the cycle going? So as we talk more about this vision of Revelation, we need to remember, Revelation is not a crystal ball telling us the future. It shows us how to live in our world now. And it reveals the ultimate true villain we all have, a creature that Revelation calls the dragon. So let's dig into what this dragon is all about. There's going to be a lot of reading today, just so you know. And we're going to be jumping back and forth, but I'm going to try to keep it straight for you. Think of, as you read this, anybody actually read Lord of the Rings? Okay, so you four, have that in your mind. If you've watched the movies, have that in your mind. If you read the Narnia stories, kind of have that in your mind. Then I witnessed in heaven an event of great significance. I saw a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon beneath her feet, and a crown of 12 stars on her head. She was pregnant, and she cried out because of her labor pains and the agony of giving birth. Then I witnessed in heaven another significant event. I saw a large red dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 crowns on its head. His tail swept away 1/3 of the stars in the sky, and he threw them to the earth. He stood in front of the woman as she was about to give birth, ready to devour her baby as soon as it was born. She gave birth to a son who was to rule all nations with an iron rod, and her child was snatched away from the dragon and was caught up to God and to his throne. Makes perfect sense, right? You guys got it? You know what to do now? All right, a dragon. You're like, what is this about? Well, if I said Godzilla came out of the sea and saw the city, you would know what was about to happen, right? If I said these guys went to this park where they got the DNA of dinosaurs and they went to go visit the park, you'd know what was about to happen, right? In the ancient world, if you say a dragon appeared, they would know what was about to happen. Dragons were part of their mythology, their lore. It's a character that many people in the ancient world were super familiar with. It was seen as a creature of chaos, of deception and destruction. Okay? So he's setting up this picture of a war with a dragon. And after this war in heaven, the dragon is thrown down to earth, and we discover his real identity. And I'll explain all this in a second. This great dragon, the ancient serpent called the devil or Satan, the one deceiving the whole world, was thrown down to the earth with all his angels. And so, in John's vision of Revelation, the dragon is not just a symbol of evil. He is the one who is hell-bent, get it? Hell-bent on destroying God's purposes for the world. The dragon represents Satan himself. And what John is showing us is that there is a real war between the forces of God and the forces of evil. We might not actually see the battles, but we definitely see the effects of these battles. There's a real war between the forces of God and the forces of evil. And I know throwing the word Satan out there can be hard to believe for a lot of people. Like, is there a spiritual world out there? The reason I believe there's an actual being called Satan is because Jesus said there's an actual being called Satan. And Jesus also said, hey, I'm going to die, and in 3 days I'm going to raise myself back to life. He did that. And so therefore, I believe pretty much everything else he says about things I don't know, right? So if he can predict his death and resurrection and pull it off, I'm going to trust him. And so John says, this dragon, Satan, is trying to destroy, we read, this woman with a crown of 12 stars and a son who's going to rule all nations. I'm like, who is this? I want to know the secret code. Well, the 12 stars represent the 12 tribes of Israel, right? And out of Israel the Savior, the King, Messiah, Jesus. So the woman can represent not just Mary, as a lot of people guess, but probably more Israel, right? And Jesus, the Messiah, is coming out of Israel, who will carry out the purposes of God. But the baby's born, and the son is carried away to God's throne, which is like a very quick Cliff Notes version of the life, death, resurrection, and ascension of Jesus. That the devil wanted to thwart God's plans with Jesus, and Jesus said, heck no, I'm going to win, and he escapes from the devil. And so he's now no longer vulnerable to anything the dragon can do. But the dragon won't rest until he destroys God's people. And so after he's thrown down to earth, he still pursues the woman. When the dragon realized that he had been thrown down to earth, he pursued the woman who had given birth to the male child. But she was given 2 wings like those of a great eagle so she could fly to the place prepared for her in the wilderness. It's just a really cool fantasy story, okay? There, she would be cared for and protected from the dragon for a time, times, and a half a time. Then the dragon tried to drown the woman with a flood of water that flowed from his mouth. But the earth, who was on God's side, helped her by opening its mouth and swallowing the river that gushed out from the mouth of the dragon. And the dragon was angry at the woman and declared war against the rest of her children, who are all who keep God's commandments and maintain their testimony for Jesus. Then the dragon took his stand on the shore beside the sea. So the dragon, pretend it's kind of story time right now, okay? So the dragon can't destroy the woman, so he tries to take his vengeance out on the rest of her children, those who keep God's commandments and maintain their testimony of Jesus. Who is that? Jesus followers. That's the church. Born out of the faith of Abraham, born out of the faith of Israel. And so we see the curtain is pulled back on what's really going on. For John's first readers, those Christians who were being persecuted by Rome, the struggles that they're going through, the persecution, the arrests, the executions, and the struggles we deal with are not a sign that God isn't paying attention or that God is losing. See, they are proof that there is a great, ongoing, cosmic battle in which all Christians have a part in, whether we know it or not. And Satan's goal is to bring chaos to the world and destroy God's people. That's kind of the gist of that dragon story there. Satan's goal is to bring chaos to the world and destroy God's people. And to carry out his plan of destruction, the dragon enlists the help of others. He enlists the help of 2 beasts, or a better translation, I think, would be 2 wild things. And this first beast, this first wild thing, comes out of the sea. And the dragon gives him his authority and power. And this beast speaks blasphemies against God. He claims to have great power and that he deserves worship. And he rules over all the nations of the world. And he uses his empire and his power to wage war against God's people. All the people of the world are impressed with his power. They're impressed with the power of the dragon and begin worshiping and following both of them. This is how the story unfolds. And this beast, for John, represents empires that claim ultimate power, that demand loyalty to human rulers instead of God. How do I know that? Because of the secret code. See, John says this beast's number is, you guys know it? 6. 6. I didn't say the last one because it's bad luck. Just kidding. It's like Voldemort. 666. A lot of meaning in these words, but it's not what the speculators who want to guess what the future is going to be actually think it is. See, the number, we're getting into some Jewish thinking here. The number 777, 7 perfection. So 7 3 times, which is, the Holy Trinity number. 7 3 times is perfect perfection. 777, perfect perfection. But the beast name is 666. It's a parody. It's an insult to someone who claims to be divine, but in reality is utter imperfection. They just can't reach that level of perfection, so they're ultimately imperfectly imperfect. It's a man trying to be God, using the power of the dragon to dominate the world. But it gets better. And this isn't like some weird conspiracy theory stuff, guys. This is what the experts are saying, okay? In Greek, there's no numbers, right? Maybe you've heard of Roman numerals, right? Or letters for numbers, because they didn't actually have the Arabic numbers yet that we use. So they use Roman numerals, which means each letter could also be a number. So when you take the word or the name Nero Caesar, maybe you heard of Emperor Nero? Nero Caesar, and you use, in Greek, you use the numbers instead of the letters, and you add them up, guess what number you get? 666. What? So for John's readers, the beast, this beast I talked about, is Rome, headed by the emperor. This is like a real story that they are living through. The emperor is trying to persecute them. And so for John, when he says 666, everybody knows, he's talking about stupid Nero, right? But that pattern of this beast who wants to rule the world and see themselves as a god repeats throughout history. That's why it's a book that we can use now. And what it means is like human governments, human leaders who act as if they are God. And so the beast is what we see whenever human systems align themselves with power at all costs. That is the beast that comes out of the sea. It could be a government. It could be a political leader. It could even be a cultural mindset that says we must win at any cost. And possibly, as many believe, there will be a final figure that fits this beast thinking. But in the meantime, there are beasts all over. And we need to be aware that Satan uses willing leaders and the system of the world to carry out his plans. That's the curtain that's being pulled back here with the story of the dragon and the beast. Satan uses willing leaders and the systems of the world to carry out his plans. He uses power-hungry people, individuals, groups, nations, to bring about chaos, idolatry, evil, and a culture of death. And so what John is doing with this vision, this like fantasy story of the dragon and the beast, he's asking us a very important question. Do we recognize when we are placing our faith in a beast like this? When we are placing our trust, giving our allegiance to a beast like John describes? And then the story goes on and it gets even better. Because not only is there a dragon and one beast, now comes a second beast. And he appears out of the earth. And this beast is kind of like the propaganda agent, the hype man for the first beast. He convinces people to worship the first beast, convincing them the first beast represents the true God and knows what God's real will is for the world. And he leads people to give blind allegiance to worldly, earthly powers instead of God. For John, writing this in the first century, it could have been local governing authorities who enforced the rule of Rome and enforced the worship of the emperor. For us, it could be anyone or any group trying to convince us the way of domination and conquering is what God wants for us. So we're trying to convince us, like the tweet we saw, right? Love your enemies, that's why you're losing. No, you need to give in to the way of the world. You need to fight back, right? So this could be any of those talking heads we see on the news. This could be any Joe Schmo with a podcast. This could be any social media influencer like we saw, trying to get us to follow the violence of the dragon, of the beast, saying, give your loyalty to this. The Jesus way, that doesn't work. Right? No, you need to fight. You need to stand up. Right? You need to be a real American or face the consequences. Being canceled or belittled or character assassination. We see it all the time, don't we? And so throughout history, what John is telling us, throughout history, the dragon, Satan, has used his beasts to create cultures and systems of idolatry, evil, chaos, and death. And that culture is called, in the book of Revelation, Babylon, which we're going to talk about next week. Okay, we're going to talk about Babylon next week. But the message here is, Jesus followers should always be ready to identify and disconnect from political powers that claim to be for or from God. That's a long one. I'm going to let you on it for a second. Always be ready to identify and disconnect from political powers that claim to be for God or to be from God, that claim to be God's chosen instrument for the world, while demanding total and unquestioning allegiance and using the methods of violence and domination. Because there's actually someone with true, infinite power that the dragon can only mimic. But to see this person, we have to actually, because we were just in Revelation 17, I think, we've got to jump back to Revelation 4 to where the story actually begins in the throne room of God himself. So Revelation 4. I'm not expecting you to follow all this. I just want you to picture the story of what's happening here. Get these characters. We're doing an overview of Revelation. I'm not trying to tell you each verse, okay? And I saw a throne in heaven and someone sitting on it. The one sitting on the throne was as brilliant as gemstones, like jasper and something else. Does anybody have carnelian? What the heck is that? I should have looked it up. Carnelian. And the glow of an emerald circled his throne like a rainbow. 24 thrones surrounded him, and 24 elders sat on them. They were all clothed in white and had gold crowns on their heads. From the throne came flashes of lightning and the rumble of thunder. And in front of the throne were 7 torches with burning flames. This is the sevenfold Spirit of God. 24 elders, 12 tribes of Israel, 12 disciples, 24 elders, representing, not those, they aren't sitting on thrones, those are representing God's people. Okay, God's people are there in God's throne room, along with, as if you read further, other beings who are worshiping God on his throne. And this image of a throne room would have been very familiar to John's readers, right? It's an image of Caesar's throne, where he always had all these people telling him how great he is and giving him that little crown of leaves and stuff. And it's a mockery of Caesar's throne. Because what John is showing is that all earthly thrones are cheap imitations of the throne of the true Lord and King of the cosmos. See, we often think like, maybe you've seen the picture of Satan and Jesus arm wrestling, right? And these bulging, veiny biceps and stuff. It's like this evenly matched fight. No, John's showing there's no match here, right? Yes, there's a beast and a dragon that tries to convince us to follow their way, but they're not king. There is one true king with the true throne. There's no contest here. But then, as we see this image of God and just his majesty and lightning and thunder, the scene's interrupted. And John sees a scroll, right? You know, like how old ancient people would write on scrolls? He sees this little scroll in God's right hand, the scroll that probably represents God's plan for salvation and just his plan for humanity. But nobody can open this scroll. Nobody has the power to open this scroll. And poor John begins to cry as he sees this. He's like, will there never be justice in the world? Like God's plan is there, but nobody can carry it out. Will there never be justice? Is there no one who can save us? But then this happens. But one of the 24 elders said to me, stop weeping. Look, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the heir to David's throne, has won the victory. He is worthy to open the scroll and its 7 seals. Yes, everybody's thinking. The Lion of Judah, rawr. Right? The heir to King David's throne. This is the promised Messiah. This is the one who is the conqueror of nations, the one who will rule the nations with an iron rod, the destroyer of God's enemies. He's going to open the scroll. He's now going to conquer, and like a lion, he's going to tear his enemies apart. And that's what John hears when he hears Lion of Judah. That's what he thinks when he hears Lion of Judah. But then he turns around and actually looks, and then I saw a lamb. The lion is now turned into a lamb that looked as if it had been slaughtered. But it was now standing between the throne and the 4 living beings and among the 24 elders. He had 7 horns and 7 eyes, which represent the sevenfold Spirit of God that is sent out into every part of the earth. He stepped forward and took the scroll from the right hand of the one sitting on the throne. The lion has turned into a slaughtered lamb. Not just a slaughtered sheep, but actually a little cute fuzzy lamb with 7 eyes. It's creepy. But it's not actually a lamb with 7 eyes. 7 eyes means perfect wisdom. 7 horns. Lambs don't have horns. I know, it's a story. Horns representing power, perfect power. This lamb has perfect wisdom and perfect power. And this ferocious royal lion's victory, that's what John is saying, is going to come through the slaughtered lamb. See, Jesus brings God's rescue, salvation, and justice not by winning, but by losing his life. It's telling the story of what has happened with Jesus. We want it to be the lion that tears his enemies apart, but what it really is the lamb who wins by losing his life. Not by destroying, but by sacrificing. I think scholar N.T. Wright put it perfectly. I wasn't even going to try to paraphrase it. The lion is the symbol both of ultimate power and of supreme royalty, while the lamb symbolizes both gentle vulnerability and, through its sacrifice, the ultimate weakness of death. But the two are now to be fused together completely and forever. From this moment on, John, and we as his careful readers, are to understand that the victory won by the lion is accomplished through the sacrifice of the lamb, and in no other way. And this is the central truth of Revelation. It's actually the central truth of the universe. This is the central truth of Revelation. Power is being redefined for the world. God's victory over the dragon doesn't come by using the same weapons as the dragon of violence, coercion, and death. It comes from humble self-sacrifice and service. See, the ultimate victory comes from what Jesus told his followers to do. Love. God overcomes the dragon and the beasts and Babylon, as we'll see next week, not through a show of force, but through the suffering and death of Jesus. But then, in the story, something even more interesting happens. Remember, it's story time, so bear with me on this one. And when he, the Lamb, took the scroll, the 4 living beings and the 24 elders fell down before the Lamb. Each one had a harp. Don't worry, you don't actually get a harp in heaven. It'll be way cooler than that. Each one had a harp, and they held gold bowls filled with incense, which are the prayers of God's people. And they sang a new song with these words: "You are worthy to take the scroll and break its seals and open it, for you were slaughtered, and your blood has ransomed people for God from every tribe and language and people and nation. And you have caused them to become a kingdom of priests for our God, and they will reign on the earth." Then I looked again, and I heard the voices of thousands and millions of angels around the throne and of the living beings and the elders, and they sang in a mighty chorus, "Worthy is the Lamb who was slaughtered to receive power and riches and wisdom and strength and honor and glory and blessing." And then I heard every creature in heaven and on earth and under the earth and in the sea. They sang, "Blessing and honor and glory and power belong to the one sitting on the throne and to the Lamb forever and ever." And the 4 living beasts said, "Amen." And the 24 elders fell down and worshiped the Lamb. Do you see it? The Lamb is the only one worthy to carry out God's plan of justice and salvation. The Lamb shares the same authority with the one on the throne. He is worthy of the same worship as the one on the throne, the same worship as God. And so this scene is where the rest of the book of Revelation actually makes sense. This vision of the slaughtered lamb is how God chose to show John and us who he really is. This is how God chose to show us who he really is. Yes, he's the all-powerful creator God, the maker of everything we see and don't see. He is worthy of all of that praise and honor, and all authority is his. And what did he do with all of that power and authority? He sacrificed himself to save his people. See, Jesus' death shows the true meaning of power, judgment, and salvation. Jesus' death shows the true meaning of power, judgment, and salvation. So everything else makes sense. Everything else in this book of Revelation makes sense when we grasp this vision of who Jesus, the God-man, actually is. And so as the story continues, we see it is this lamb who ultimately defeats and judges the dragon and his beastly peons. And he brings an end to their corrupt empire, which they call Babylon. Great story, right? It's just like Lord of the Rings. It's like interrupted with songs and everything. It's amazing. But what's that got to do with us? Like, it's really cool, and like to see Jesus as like the slaughtered lamb, but who has all the power and authority. I love it. But what's it have to do with us? Here's the thing. We are invited to participate in the Lamb's overthrow of the dragon. In the story that we read, where the dragon's thrown down to earth, right, and then he chases him in, and the earth swallows up the water and stuff, we actually skipped a part that I wanted to say for this part right here. Okay? Then I heard a loud voice shouting across the heavens, "It has come at last, salvation and power and the kingdom of our God and the authority of his Christ. For the accuser of our brothers and sisters has been thrown down to earth, the one who accuses them before our God day and night. And they have defeated him by the blood of the Lamb and by their testimony. And they did not love their lives so much that they were afraid to die. Therefore rejoice, O heavens, and you who live in the heavens, rejoice. But terror will come down on the earth and the sea, for the devil has come down to you in great anger, knowing that he has little time." The people of God is what John's talking about. The people of God defeat the dragon by the blood of the Lamb and their testimony. In other words, the people of God participate in the revolution of God by following the way of the Lamb. The people of God participate in the revolution of God by following the way of the Lamb. By telling the real way to life isn't through conquering, isn't through destroying, it isn't even through winning. It's through following the Lamb and displaying his love and peace and mercy and justice. The people of God conquer by reflecting the Lamb to a world that is enslaved by and in love with the way of the dragon. The followers of the Lamb win by choosing to love, by choosing to love and forgive their enemies, by choosing to lose, by working for peace and justice for those who can't do it for themselves. See, the dragon tries to control through violence and fear. But the Lamb wins through love and faithfulness. So to join this revolution, that's why we're doing this series, we need to learn to discern the dragon's influence behind the beasts of our time. See, Revelation, again, wasn't given to us to scare us. It's not supposed to be a scary book for us. It was given to wake us up, to show us the world for what it really is. There is a war going on, whether we know it or not, whether we like it or not. And if you are a Jesus follower, you, whether you know it or like it or not, are part of this war. And we see it in the major events in the world, right, with empires trying to conquer other people and exert their dominance. But we also see it in our families. We see it in our classrooms. We see it in our offices. Forces that try to dominate and control, creating chaos and hatred. And the question John has for us, will we trust the Lamb and his way? Or will we give in and try to use the weapons of the dragon for ourselves? Kind of like the One Ring in Lord of the Rings, right? It's the enemy's ring, but if we just use it for our good, then maybe it'll work. You know, they are angry and they yell and they scream and they try to win through that dominance. Well, if we just use those tools, but we'll use it for good, then it'll be okay. No, John says, do not follow the way of the dragon. John's message is clear. God's kingdom is not built by force, but by sacrificial love. And the way of the dragon is so appealing. I mean, when we look at it like that, we're like, I would never follow a dragon. But it's so appealing, especially to people raised in a culture of being part of the best, the most powerful, and the most successful nation in history. We're Americans. We win. We dominate. We are exceptional. There's never been anything like us. We are amazing. And trying to see that maybe there's some dragon, there's some beast in that. It's like trying to tell a fish, hey, you're wet. Right? You're just in it. We're just in it. The way of the dragon is so tempting because we want to win. Americans win. But the true lion conquers as the lamb. The question is, will we follow him? So to help us discern the difference between the way of the dragon and the way of the lamb, let's remind ourselves of who the lamb is, what the lamb is like, and who his people are called to be. This is how the Apostle Paul described him. So this week, let's read Philippians 2, 3 through 11. This is the last long reading I'm going to do. Don't be selfish. Don't try to impress others. Be humble, thinking of others as better than yourselves. Don't look out only for your own interests, but take an interest in others too. You must have the same attitude that Christ Jesus, the Lamb, had. Though he was God, he did not think of equality with God as something to cling to. Instead, he gave up his divine privileges. He took the humble position of a slave and was born as a human being. When he appeared in human form, he humbled himself in obedience to God and died a criminal's death on a cross. Therefore, and this is really just like the paraphrase of what we just read in Revelation, therefore God elevated him to the place of highest honor and gave him the name above all other names, that at the name of Jesus every knee should bow in heaven and on earth and under the earth, and every tongue declare that Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of God the Father. I don't know how you could have a horrible day reading that in the morning. Maybe read that every morning this week, see how it goes. And then let's ask ourselves these two questions. And these are on the back of your notes page. What am I following or relying on that doesn't match this picture that I read in Philippians? Maybe who am I listening to? Who am I following that doesn't match this picture that I just read in Philippians? Who is speaking into my life that doesn't match this picture? And then, am I more concerned about winning or following the way of the Lamb? Am I more concerned about winning or following the way of the Lamb? In your job, do you compromise on integrity in order to win in your career? In relationships, do you seek control instead of sacrificial love? Do you seek it to be even instead of just sacrificing lovingly? In our politics, is our faith in Jesus or in worldly power? See, the way of the dragon will always promise victory, but end in destruction. The way of the Lamb looks like losing. To everyone on the outside, it looks like you're losing, but it's the only way to real life. And John's question is, which will you choose? Because the Lamb, not Caesar, not the dragon, is king over everything. And we as individuals and as a community are invited to play our part in bringing the revolution of Jesus to our world now. But it comes through love, not force. It comes through acceptance, not division. It comes from helping the stranger and the enemy, not by trying to save our own little kingdoms. The battle is real, and our loyalty matters. See, the way of the Lamb is the only way to peace, justice, and ultimate victory. The way of the Lamb is the only way to peace, justice, and ultimate victory. And we started with a Twitter post. I want to end with this pastor's post. He said, this is Zach Lambert, I am going to prioritize love above dogma and debates, above theology and ideology. I'm going to prioritize love. Because Jesus didn't say his followers would be known by our beliefs. Jesus said we'd be known by our love. As we go through our weeks and our days, in every situation we can ask, what does the Lamb's love look like? What does Jesus' love look like? And in that, we will be guided towards the way of the Lamb and not the way of the dragon.